new concert film hit theaters this past weekend, but did it open at number one like Taylor Swift, or did it fall down the list? We're going to find out right now. I'm Adam, this is Does It Hold Up Box Office Edition, and let's find out if this past weekend's box office held up. As always, let's start with the top 10. In first place was that new concert film, Renaissance, a film by Beyonce. It took in $21.8 million. We're going to come back to that in just a little bit. In second place in its third week is The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, bringing in another $14.1 million, 51% drop, but it's doing all right. It's taken in just under $121 million so far. In third place, also new to the list this week, is Godzilla Minus One. It took in just under $11.5 million. Not a bad start for a Godzilla movie. In fourth place, staying right there since last week, is Trolls Band Together in its third week with another $7.8 million, a 56% drop, but it has crossed $75 million at the box office here domestically. In fifth place, in its second week, is Disney's Wish, taking in just $7.7 million, has a huge 61% drop, but it has brought in $42.2 million so far. That's not great. A 61% drop on a movie that didn't open very well either is not something Disney wants to see, especially because this movie has a reported budget of around $200 million. In 2 weeks, you've only brought in $42 million. The first 2 weeks is usually where you make the majority of your money. This is going to be a wild ride for them, and it's going to be yet another box office disappointment that can't even make back its budget or even get close to it during its theatrical run. Thankfully for Disney, they have a mass production line of toys for every movie that they make, because it might be the only way this movie makes any sort of profit. In sixth place, also in its second week, is Napoleon, with just under $7.3 million, a 65% drop, but it's made about $46 million at the box office for now. Again, looking at this, it's a 65% drop. These are drops you expect to see from movies that open up to 80, 90, maybe $100 million. When you're opening up rather low and still dropping that percentage, it means all the people who were excited went and saw it that first weekend, and now nobody else cares. I don't know how to feel about this. I thought Napoleon was going to be the second in a wave of these big biopics, these big historical dramas. I guess nobody cares about Napoleon. Or maybe it's Joaquin Phoenix. Maybe people don't want to see him in any other movie unless he's playing the Joker. I don't know. In seventh place, new to the list, is Animal. It takes in about $6.5 million. In eighth place is new to the list. It's The Shift, taking in $4.3 million. In ninth place, new to the list again, Silent Night, taking in just over $3 million. And rounding out the top 10 is Thanksgiving in its third week with $2.6 million, a 63% drop. It's made about $28.3 million so far. But let's take a look at that middle part of the 6 through 10 movies. That 7, 8, and 9 spot are all brand new movies. We also had 2 brand new movies in the top 5. Half the movies in theaters that made the top 10 this past weekend were new movies. That's actually a pretty good sign. That means people are going out to the theater. They're wanting to see something new. They don't want to see the same stuff they've seen all the time. Every one of these is an original IP. Silent Night, The Shift, Animal. These aren't related to anything else. The only one that's currently in the top 10 that's new to this list, new to the top 10, is Godzilla Minus One. That's the only one that's not original. It's tied to the Godzilla franchise. But it's good to see that people want to go back to the theater to see new things. They don't want to see the same old, same old. Because there were 5 new in the top 10 this past week, that means 5 movies fell out of the top 10. And they are Saltburn after just 1 week, Marvel's The Marvels after 3 weeks. Imagine that. An MCU movie falls out of the top 10 in just its 4th week. Crazy. The Holdovers after 5 weeks, Five Nights at Freddy's after 5 weeks, but a pretty good theatrical run, over $130 million for them. And Taylor Swift The Eras Tour after 7 weeks. Very interesting that Taylor Swift falls out of the top 10 the same week that another concert film joins the top 10. In fact, leads the way for the top 10. So let's take a look at those and see how they stack up to each other. I know it's not a one-to-one comparison, but they are both concert films by some of the biggest stars in pop music of all time. So if we take a look at their opening weekends, Renaissance, a film by Beyonce, opens up to that 21.8 million. It has a long way to go to reach Taylor Swift The Eras Tour that opened up back October 13th with its opening weekend of 92.8 million. There's going to be a lot of pieces that are written about this. Was it a successful first weekend? When you look at the Taylor Swift comparison, it doesn't look like it. But we also have to understand, it's the holiday season. A lot of people aren't going to the movies right now. If Beyonce can stay in the theatrical market for 7-8 weeks like Taylor Swift did, we're going to see that number continue to grow. How high? I don't know. But we are going to be tracking this week to week to see where it all stacks up. Let's take a look at the Marvels. It's the lowest grossing MCU movie since the MCU started. The previous record holder was The Incredible Hulk from back in 2008, which back then took in about 135 million domestically. Adjusted for inflation, that would actually be closer to about 198 million. With the Marvels just barely over 80 million and its theatrical run slowing down quite a bit and coming to an end, it's not even a contest. The Marvels won't even reach the Hulk's unadjusted number, let alone the adjusted number. So, what can Marvel do different? I've racked my brain about this over and over again. I've actually been working on a piece that I'm hoping to turn into a video all about if I was in charge of the MCU right now, what would I change? How would I get people back into theaters? But I'm curious, what would you do? What do you think Marvel has been failing at lately? And what do you think they can change to get people to go back to see their movies and become one of the biggest juggernauts in basically all of Hollywood again? Because right now, nothing they're doing seems to work. Trolls Band Together is doing pretty well at the box office right now, having grossed over 75 million, and I haven't really talked about it that much. And that's because there's 3 movies, but it's really hard to compare them. The first one came out all the way back in 2016, but the second one came out in 2020 when theaters were closed and went directly to streaming. So if we were going to compare all the movies, it'd be a little unfair because the second one didn't have the opportunity to make any money. But I thought, you want to screw it? Let's go ahead and compare just the first 2 movies. So here's your comparison for Trolls 2016 and their newest movie, Trolls Band Together. So back in 2016, Trolls opened up to $46.5 million. Trolls Band Together opened up to $30 million. That's not that bad. Now, we're not adjusting for inflation here, which would separate it just a little bit, but 2016 wasn't that long ago, so the adjustment isn't really that much. Trolls went on to make $153.7 million. Trolls Band Together is currently over 75 million, roughly 50% of what Trolls did back in 2016. Can it get there? I don't think so. I think Trolls Band Together is going to end up probably passing 100 million, but it's going to land somewhere around 115 million, 110, 115. Nowhere near that 153, and it's definitely not going to reach the adjusted number for Trolls, which was 187.1 million. Does that mean Trolls Band Together is a failure? Absolutely not. I just had a chance to watch the movie over this past weekend, and I actually really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the first one. I did not enjoy Trolls World Tour in 2020. I thought that movie was pretty much garbage, but this new one has kind of a lively story. It's got a lot of things wrong with it, but I think they're doing a really good job with these characters and kind of growing these characters as each new movie comes out, which is good for us who follow along because we get to grow with them. It's not the best movie I've seen this year. It's probably not even in the top 10, maybe not even the top 15, but it was way more enjoyable than I ever thought it was going to be. And because of that, I think this movie might be able to have an Elemental type run, where it just kind of stays in theaters, making a couple million each week, until all of a sudden it's at 120, 130 million. But I do think this one's going to land somewhere around 110, 115 million. We'll check back in a couple weeks when it's all done. There wasn't much else to talk about with the box office this past weekend. Nothing major happened, nothing opened up really big, nothing fell really far, other than the few little things that we've already discussed. So we're going to go ahead and just move on to what's coming this weekend. and we really only have one major release. It is the holiday season, so a lot of movies aren't coming out right now, but there is one that I am excited for. The Boy and the Heron. A young boy named Mahito ventures into a world shared by the living and the dead in search of his mother. It's the newest Studio Ghibli movie, and it's the first movie to be directed by Miyazaki since 2013's The Wind Rises. He's one of the greatest animated movie directors of all time. Studio Ghibli makes these amazing, and I'm sorry, I might be pronouncing that wrong. A lot of people say Studio Ghibli, some people say Studio Ghibli. I don't know. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. But this one looks very interesting, and I will see it mostly because I love everything that this studio's put out, especially anything directed by Miyazaki. He just has this flair that I don't think a lot of other studios and a lot of other directors can get out of their animated films. He makes them feel so real, even though we know they aren't. So that's the big one coming out this weekend. It is wide release, so hopefully it's playing in a theater near you. Are you going to check this one out? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more great content, or you can click the box on the screen right now. Until next week, be good to yourself, be kind to others, and keep watching movies.